Hi, BC family. Welcome back to my midweek devotion. So, this week I wanted to talk to you guys about sitting back instead of leaning in. So, I've just recently started taking up cycling classes again. And if you've never done that, it's incredibly difficult, especially when that resisting kicks in. It becomes so painful and so cumbersome and hard to just push through. And as the heaviness mounts, you begin to notice, at least I notice, that I begin to lean forward. You begin to lean forward, and you're in this weird folded position where your eyes and your heart are facing down because you're just doing everything you can to just survive the set. And as I'm doing that, I hear the instructors say, I'll tell you what your body wants to do. Our bodies want to lean into the handles, lean into the discomfort. But I can tell you right now that you need to come up a little taller and sit in it. Because when you do that, you still have a foundation and a base. So in the middle of this difficult set, sit into it, don't lean into it. And I started to think about life's problems and trials and storms, and I started to visualize my posture in those situations. And I started asking myself, am I leaning into the problem, just trying to survive, just to push through, or am I sitting back in Him and having the posture for the results I want? Because you see, when you're leaning forward and cycling, you're losing sight of your posture. You're supposed to have a specific posture when you're working out, right? Because that's the results you want to get. It gives you the best results. It protects you when you have a good posture. But why are we losing sight of that posture? Because we're in survival mode. We're just trying to push through, get through by any means necessary. But when we sit back and we keep the correct posture, our heart up and our eyes looking forward and out, we're still pressing through. We're still pushing through. We're still feeling the pain, but our benefits and results will be different. We will actually get the results that we're working so hard for because we are keeping that foundation and base solid. And the same is true in our spiritual walk. I was recently talking to a friend of mine, and we were going through very similar situations. And in this conversation, we talked about how when it gets hard, it's easy to find yourself in survival mode where you're thinking, okay, I need to fix this. I don't see a way out. I don't see how God's going to help me. So what can I do to make this happen? And the stress begins to mount, and you start to push yourself to the max to find an answer to what am I going to do about this? There's no way out of this situation. So our body, our instincts, our flesh wants to lean into the handlebars. In essence, right? Right away, we want to just push through by any means necessary because we're just going to survive this. We're going to make it through. But she knew in our conversation that she had a choice. She could do that. She could push through and give in to everything circulating through her mind, or she could make the choice to sit back in Him and keep her solid foundation and base in God and His Word, and keep her eyes looking up and out and at the promises of God rather than down and at the problems, rather in that folded position, right? Within about a week or so of her doing that, of just saying, nope, I'm going to choose to, follow God and sit back into His promises, results were beginning to happen, and her situation was suddenly starting to change. Things were coming in, and it was like, oh my goodness, right? And it was the promises that she had clung to were beginning to come to pass for her. She had made a choice to position her heart to receive the best results in her life, right? Because she chose to sit back and keep that base in Him rather than lean forward and push through it on her own. Psalms 5:11-12 says, "But let all who take refuge in you rejoice. Let them sing joyful praises forever. Spread your protection over them, that all who love your name may be filled with joy. For you bless the godly, O Lord. You surround them with your shield of love." I love that. But let all who take refuge in you rejoice. It's a choice to sit back in Him or push through on our own. So when a problem or a storm arises in our lives, we have to make that choice and say, nope, I'm going to sit back in Him. Even if it's hard, even if it's painful. I mean, it may slow our legs down a bit, right? When we do that. But when we do, what did that verse just say? That's when we can count it all joy. We can rejoice and sing joyful praises. Why? The verse said, because He is spreading protection over me. God is blessing me and surrounding me with the shield of love. That's why you can count it all joy. I love the amplified version of this verse too. It says, "But let all those who take refuge and put their trust in you rejoice. Let them ever sing and shout for joy because you make a covering over them and defend them. Let those also who love your name be joyful in you and be in high spirits." See, you can be so full of joy even when you're pushing through and riding through that pain. "For you, Lord, will bless the uncompromisingly righteous. As with a shield, you will surround him with goodwill, pleasure, and favor." That's the benefits. When you sit back in him and you have the correct posture, that is the benefits, the results that you reap. Goodwill, pleasure, favor. You're surrounded as if with shield. God defends you. Psalms 18, 28 through 30 says, "You light a lamp for me. The Lord my God lights up my darkness. In your strength, I can crush an army. With my God, I can scale any wall. God's way is perfect. All the Lord's promises prove true. He is a shield for all who look to him for protection." God's way is perfect. God promises to protect his people. And when we make that choice to sit back in him, to seek him, then we are using trust and faith. And in the Psalms Psalms 18, regardless of how David feels about his circumstances, he chooses to make this deep commitment to the Lord. And as he's waiting, he's making that choice to experience joy as he waits on God to rescue him. I highly recommend anybody to read Psalms 18. There's so much to that Psalms about what we get when we make the choice to sit back in him. I'll read you one more verse of chapter 18. It's verse 33. It says, "He makes my feet like hinds' feet, able to stand firmly and make progress on the dangerous heights of testing and trouble. He sets me securely up on my high places." I love that verse, and I pray that verse out a lot. You know, you take it and you make it yours. You say, "Thank you, God. You make my feet like hinds' feet. I'm able to make progress and stand firm in you because you set me securely on high places," right? That's sitting back in him. Now, I want to leave you with one more thing to think on this week. When you're sitting back in him, the question I want you to ask yourself is, what are you imagining? If you sat through Sunday's 2 services with Glenn Johnson, it was amazing. And he talked a lot about your imagination and vision. Andrew Womack said, "The imagination is the doorway to your potential." Why? Because if you can see it, then you can achieve it. And there's so much to that. Most people will sometimes just confess scriptures, say they're healed, out of debt. They'll say the scriptures, they'll imagine, they'll say that their relationships are restored, but they don't really see it. They can't actually imagine it, right? So I want to encourage you this week as you are pushing through. First, sit back in him. Right? Maintain that correct posture. Keep your eyes looking up and out at the promises. And while you're pedaling through those seasons and those ones that have some serious resistance to it, imagine. Dream big. Imagine what your life will be like. And that's the direction your feet will take you. Have a great week. Bye.